Part 3 in 3D. No, it's not in 3D. Just kidding. But yeah, part 3. Well, where'd we leave off? Yeah, after she left, it was a big relief. And yeah, there's a couple things happened right after that. Right after, see, it wasn't, I had the missing time, and then right after that, still hanging out in the pallets, because out in the dark in the pallets, because I didn't want to drive around inside. And the sanitation lady, I was working for sanitation technically. She's always wanting me to do these weird chores and stuff, and dealing with chemicals and stuff. And I'm not a chemical person. No thanks. So anyway, yeah, I was just parked out by the pallets. And I just there's like a grassy area out there, and it's dark. There's like floodlights in the building, but the building's way 50 yards back. So I just walked between some pallets to this grassy area, and I see like 7 foxes. I see a mama fox standing up, just looking like due south. And I see like 7 pups just racing around the grass. There's grass about 8 inches tall on average. It's varied, but they're just racing around. They're, I don't know, chasing mice or something. They're chasing each other. They're just ripping around. Holy cow. I didn't think you could sneak up on one fox, let alone mom and 7 pups. I just stood there like at the edge of the concrete, just still, just watching them. And then one peeled off, and he was kind of walking near the pallets, and he's walking right towards me. I mean, he's gonna run right into my leg. And I thought I'd better say something, because I didn't want him to get an inch away and then smell me or something. But I just went, see, we got about 2 feet away. I just went, "Hi there." And he kind of looked up. He kind of like blinked and kind of like slowly turned his head and walked away. It's like he wasn't scared or surprised or anything. It's like, where did you come from? And as soon as I said hi there, the mom goes, "Yip yip," and they all just split out into the darkness, out of the light. They're gone in a flash. And I kept seeing the same fox. See, that was, and I wish I had taken that literally, considering my heritage. If I had known then what I know now, I would have shut my mouth, thought of things more in a strategic way. But yeah, I made it. I don't know, I started talking to this friend of mine. His nickname was Larry the J. Stood for Larry the Jerk. And I kept seeing the fox. I'd go to see, it's dark, it's graveyard shift, so we go to the truck stop and get food. And keep seeing the fox when I'd come back. And it's like, quit talking to this guy, watch what you're saying to this idiot, because he's just repeating everything to everyone else, which is fine, whatever. But live and learn. I see a fox now, I'll learn to shut my yap. Or Anyway, be smarter. Use the fox spirit to your advantage. But anyway, yeah, that happened. And there's also another thing. Well, this happened later. But at that house, it was beginning of October when broke up. So I went through, and I remember I was walking down the alley one night. I was drinking a lot of beer. I was alcoholic then too. And I was drinking 40 ounces, big bottles, alcohol, beer. And I was always broke, so I'd have to take the bottles back for deposit. And there's 3 guys. There's just like a meth house at the end of had my alley, and I was in the middle of my alley, and then the Summer Street, and then another alley to the store. It's like a gas station market type thing. Did a lot of business. So I was walking there one night, and on Summer Street, I was in the middle of summer winter shipping Norway. Across Summer Street, the beginning of that alley to the next street, there was like a meth house, this dilapidated, run down. I'm not even. They might have been squatters that were living there. I don't know if they paid rent or not, or what the deal was, but it was a meth house. There's no doubt about it. These guys were raising hell. These guys probably ripping off that girl the one girl that used to live up next to me. And this Larry the J, he's at my house one time. He got his radio stolen out of his car. He had a Carmen Gia, and they stole his radio. I remember I went in the kitchen. I hear somebody out by the car, and he goes, "Oh yeah, sure you do." It's like, well, all right, whatever. If you don't want to check it out, it's your car. But yeah, he comes out. Why your radio stolen? I said, "Oh really?" I told you, I heard something out there. But yeah, I was walking, I was carrying a bag of bottles, and they're walking right down the middle of the street. It's dark. And there's like a group of people behind them. There's like 3 or 4 other guys and a couple of girls too. I thought, that's weird. These 3 usually travel alone. But yeah, they're walking right down, so I just walked straight at them. I just walked right down the middle, and as soon as I got to them, I just didn't stop. They just parted ways, and as soon as they were kind of taunting when they were getting to him. Who is this guy taking my bottles? As soon as they were still taunting me when I got past them, and then I just turned around and I said, what's your guys' problem? And is the 3 guys that's there, and the group behind is, a couple guys and a couple of girls, but the girls didn't look like they fit in at all. I mean, they're dressed nice and they look like nice girls. And these 3 guys, I mean, they're all about the same height. I'm about a little over, about 6'1", a little over 6. At that time, I hadn't shrunk yet, so I was probably still over 6'1". But these guys were about 5'9", 5'10", all 3 of them. And what's your problem, you guys? That's it. Anyway, they come up and eventually got to the point where they're standing in front of me, and I just go, well, hey, I just want to be left alone. I'm going to, okay, yeah, we can do that. So one guy on the left held out his hand, so I thought, well, okay, I'll shake your hand. So as soon as I touched his hand, I looked at the next guy in line, and then he held out his hand, and I shook his hand, and I looked at the next guy. So I wasn't looking at the guy I was shaking hands with, because I thought if this guy makes a move, I'm going to feel it, and I'll see it from this guy. And I'll just have to wing it from if it's the other guy. I thought if anyone makes a move, I'm dropping these bottles. I'm going to try to grab one as it going down, and I'm going to throw it at him, and I'm going to start swinging a bottle. So I had a plan. Now to shake the last guy's hand. It's like, okay, see you guys. I walk down the halls, down the alley. And then they start yelling again. Ah, you idiot, you old baby. Whatever. But, I don't know, that's weird. Considering my history with confronting or having 3 people confront me, I guess that would be considered another one. But there was, and right near Halloween, see, I don't know if a lot of people, maybe if you're not American, you don't know this, but Halloween is October 31st, and it's like a solstice thing, you know. It's not known as that. It's, you know, it's like when people dress up in costumes and stuff like that. Scary costumes. Kids dress up in costumes and stuff. But it's become quite a holiday. I remember that Halloween, I was at my house, and I wasn't working. So basically I was just sitting at home all alone, which is not unusual. That's every day, basically. But I was in the house, and it felt really creepy. I mean, that house was really creepy. But I've been around creepy things all my life, so whatever. But yeah, that night felt extra creepy. And it felt like something was outside the house. It really did. I thought someone was moving around out there. I opened the door and looked outside, and it was foggy. I mean, it was really foggy. I mean, it'd been maybe foggy like that before, but this seemed different. It seemed like a wet blanket. It seemed like if anything you couldn't see, there might not be anything out there. Like beyond your sight could be nothing, maybe, who knows, or anything. But it was really, it's like a wet blanket. It was, I mean, I looked out the door, it's like, I'm not going to the store tonight. I'm just going to stay home. I'm not going to, my chance fate. So I closed the door. But I did hear something in the bedroom. And the bedroom was right on the alley. I mean, a foot away. I mean, cars would drive like 2 feet from my head where I'd sleep. But there's rarely any traffic, so. Die in my sleep anyway, I guess. But hey, yeah, I did hear something. I looked out the window. It had this, this was a really old house. It's really old stuff. Everything was old in there. It had one of these old roll-up windows, screens you pull down and it rolls up. But it broke off the thing, so when you hung it up right, it hung crooked and light would always come through. But if you hung it up backwards, then it would hang straight. So that's what I did, hung it up backwards. But I looked out that window and didn't see anything, and then I heard something like scrape against the wood, and it's like, okay, so I'm not going to look again. So I went back in the living room, and I'm just going to stand in there, and then I heard like it sounded like something scratching on glass. That's what it sounded like, kind of to me. I thought, okay, what is that? That is a weird sound. That's not cool at all. I thought, well, I can just stand here and ponder it, or I can look. and actually see. So I thought, well, I'm gonna look. So I went around the corner and I looked. It was like the rod that was, when you hung it up right, it would be crooked. When you hung it upside down, the rod had weight. So that rod was like slowly ripping loose. The glue was coming off that rod. It was slowly, he was making that sound. I just look at that. I just thought, how absurd, how weird. And this, for it to make that sound and be so creepy and weird and stuff like that, I just thought how absurd it was. I just burst out. I just thought it was funny. And as soon as I laughed for a second, it's like all the darkness disappeared. It's like it was really, it really seemed dark and dank and scary and ominous. But as soon as I laughed for a while, I mean, the mood changed. Changed a lot. Changed 100% for me. But it reminded me of something I heard. These guys were talking about, they were doing an exorcist on a guy. And they tried everything. Everything they'd heard of or had tried before. Everything they did, nothing worked. So they thought, they got a joke book. And they just turned reading jokes. Until one of them got him to laugh, and then that was it. That's all it took. See, I drove cab for a while, and I'll have to tell that story. Those are some good stories there. And I also dispatch, and I told the guys, I told other drivers, I was never worried. And I just say, if you get someone to talk or laugh, they're probably not going to stab you in the neck, So that's my theory. When someone to talk or laugh, they're not going to stab you in the neck. Seems fair. But yeah, and when I moved out of that place, that was weird too. One day the landlord comes up and goes, "Hey, you got to move out." At the end of the month, I go, "Oh, why? How come?" "Well, some lady wants to pay $300 more a month." Well, you could have asked me first, but he knew I couldn't afford it. So, no point. It's like, all right, well, thanks. But yeah, I just basically had to load everything in a truck. Had a Tommy lift. I had to do it all myself. And I took it to Goodwill and donated all my furniture because I had nowhere to store it. My parents weren't going to keep it at their house, so there went all my furniture. But anyway, yeah, I just hastily got out of there. I kind of cleaned it up best I could, but he said, "You got to get out in a month." So I was out. I knew I was going to get the deposit, so I didn't worry about being extra super clean. But anyway, I met the lady that was moving out, and she's kind of looking at me. She goes, "Good job clearing that house." I go, "Well," or cleaning that house. I go, "Well, I don't know. I didn't really try it. I didn't really have time." So, did a good job. I just wondered about that. It's like, I don't know. It's like she was, I don't know, it was weird. It was interesting. Like trying to get me out of there. But anyway, I bounced around from houses there. I lived with a girl. This is in a condo near my folks' house. I like that place. She had a daughter, and her name was Toto, like Wizard of Oz. She's nice. Kind of erratic, but oh well. And her daughter was really clever and smart. Her boyfriend was scared I was living there, so he was there all the time. I mean, they're always gone. She always spent all her time at their house, pretty much. She was never home. But she had a series of other girls there that were varying ranges of disaster. But it's one girl. She's a new mom, and she didn't like to do any type of housework or anything. I looked in the bathroom one time, and there's like 30 diapers in there, just laying everywhere. She just changed the baby's diaper and just threw the dirty diaper in the bathroom. You can imagine the smell. What the F is this? But yeah, I didn't spend a lot of time there either. But the last place I lived before my warden dad passed away and I got an inheritance was the first guy I met was Steve. I said I'd work for his dad at hazelnut processing plant, hellhole. Literal, maybe. But yeah, that place. See, I'd been out there before. I hung out there a lot when, cause that's, I lived at my folks a lot too, cause I couldn't really leave my mom alone with my dad full time, cause, worried about him, because he'd do things when other people weren't around that he wouldn't do with people around. So, but it's not like I had a choice. It seemed like I worked my ass off all the jobs I had, but I didn't have, to do the kind of work I did. You have to have a roommate and friends and stuff, and I was so sheltered and introverted and traumatized and stuff that I really didn't have a lot of friends or any. So, but I was like the chauffeur. I was as much a slave as Mom was. I drove my father and my mother to every doctor appointment that we went to. My dad to every emergency room visit. 18 for heart defibrillation. 18 times. It's like he learned to defibrillate his heart. He's always at 3 in the morning. I remember the third time we were kind of getting used to the drill, and he wanted to take all his pills. He's asking my mom, do you have all my pills? You got this? I got that? And she goes, well, yeah, I think she had a bag full of pills. He goes, well, you got this? What kind of, how many milligrams? And she goes, well, it's 25. He goes, no, I want the 50. I'm going, Dad, it's a hospital. They got pills. What are you mad about? He goes, no, I want my pills. What are you trying? She's trying to kill me. What's he talking about? I pull up into the emergency, in front of the emergency, into the emergency room at the hospital. Guy comes out with a wheelchair, and 3 seconds later, the nurse asks him, are you okay? Or asks, does it hurt? And he goes, yeah, it hurts. He's yelling at my mom, you're trying to kill me, and he's talking to this nurse, yeah, it hurts a little bit. He's like a little kid. Yeah, it hurts. He's so two-faced, and me and Mom are just looking at that. Oh my God, this show. He would have lived in a hospital if he could, just getting attention all the time. He would have loved that. His narcissism level is off the charts. I think I mentioned that he's 92 when he passed away. He had one picture in his bedroom, when he was posing for a basketball team photo when he's like 20 years old holding a basketball. He looked at that when he went to bed at night and getting up in the morning. Yeah, he basically wasn't human. 2 minutes after my mom died, I was devastated. My Aunt Marie was there, and she was going, well, your mom's in a better place. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but still, my dad goes, well, if there is such a thing as heaven, stood there with this grin on his face. He was happy she was gone. He watched TV, all he wanted. Didn't have to pretend to care anymore. But anyway, yeah, I had a falling out with him, which led me to live to the place that I had to live till I got my inheritance when he passed away. I had my dream job. I was doing a job I'd done before. It was a job I liked. I was driving for Brett, my first childhood friend in Salem. When we first moved to Salem, he was the guy I worked for, driving elderly, and he was like transportation to doctor's appointments, things like that for disabled and low income and foster kids. One of the owners of this place was a foster parent. The owner with Brett owned it with this other guy, and he was a foster parent, so had a lot of foster kids. But that's the job I had before I got stuck at this last place. It was a Wheels cherry lift. And it was a Wheels, you could get 6 wheelchairs in there, so it was basically the same job, but it was more intensive. You had to have a certain certificate to drive and a bus endorsement and Class B CDL, which was great. I drove truck. They loved me. I'd done both those jobs, but had a falling out with my dad. He's a narcissist. It's always about getting a rise out of someone, and he had new material. Mom died, and see, I didn't care to live there anymore, but I was broke. I was seasonal work, and I got stuck there taking care of. Well, I wasn't stuck. I wanted to stay home. My dad was making me go to work. You gotta work. No, I want to stay here with Mom. No, he got bad enough where I just said, hey, I'm staying home. It's like, okay, because he couldn't help take care of her at the end. But after she passed, I still had to live there, and I got my dream job at this Wheels. This is kind of job I was meant to do. You can help people doing this job. But I needed to live at a house, in a place where you could wash your clothes and take a bath, and it's either that or live in. I had a Subaru Brat, this little pickup with a canopy. It's either that or live in the bed of that. And it was in November, and it was really cold. It's getting in the 20s. But I just thought, he'd said this once before. I still smoked, so I'd have to smoke outside, so I have to walk through the living room. And every time I walked through the living room, if there wasn't a basketball game on, or some kind of game, or some kind of show he's interested in, he'd just yell something like, you going out there to kill yourself. You're killing yourself smoking. You're killing yourself. You're going to kill yourself. You're killing yourself. You're getting cancer. You're going to kill yourself. Every time I'd walk through. So, but he said something once. He said, you're going out there to kill yourself smoking. You helped kill your mother. And that hit a nerve. So I thought, if he says that again, I'm not going to let him say that again. That's enough. The only reason I hung around that family was for Mom. and she was gone. So I was going to live in, which is eventually what I did, get a sleeping bag and live in a pickup bed. But yeah, you said that, you know, it's 4 in the morning. I'm a night owl. You know, there's a movie I really wanted to watch, and I was walking through the living room. He goes, "You're going out there to kill yourself." You see, he just got up too. I heard him. I remember I was thinking, well, I should have a smoke before he gets up, and I hear him get up. It's 4 in the morning. And as soon as I come in the living room, he's sitting there like this. He's just like someone had just, I don't know. He just angry as hell. He's just anxious to try his new material. But as soon as he said that, I said, okay, you're going out there to kill yourself. You're going out. You helped kill your mother. So I just stopped. I said, okay, you want to know something? I'm the only one that helped mother. I mean, here she was dying, sitting in this crappy chair over here. You know, I just slowly walked toward him. He's sitting in the living room in the corner in the big, comfortable chair. And the chair next to it was where Mom, you know, that's where she spent her last hours in that house before going to the hospital and dying. I said, you know, I'm the only one that took care of her. I mean, there's all these people in town. I had to spend 20 hours a day staying here with her because no one was here. I mean, you never spent more time out of the house. I mean, do you ever think of her? She's laying in this crappy chair, can't even see the TV from where she is. You're sitting in this nice chair, you watch whatever you want. Did you ever even consider? You know, I'm telling him this, and he puts his head down his chest like this. He's like a 3-year-old kid. He's like being scolded by his mother again. So I can see when his mind got broken when he was a child. But eventually, you know, I just told him, you know, anyway, he went on like that. And he wouldn't look at me, so I got down on my knees, because I wanted him to look in his eyes. Put my hands behind my back, and I got down on my knees, and I started looking up at him. And eventually he kind of snapped out of his stupor of being a little kid and reverted back to himself, and he stood up real mean. He started yelling at me, and it reminded me of him punching me in the head again when I left home when I was right before I turned 18. I got a picture. This is 2 months before I left home. Alright, but 2 months before he punched me in the head twice. See, his hair always looks bigger than it is because of the shadows. It looks round like a sphere. See, it was curly. Mom did that. I mean, if people think I curled my hair, they... I'm not that vain. I would never do something like that on purpose. I didn't like curly hair. It made me look different. That's why I always wore a hat, because I felt weird having curly hair. But yo, I got a picture of the GN 400 too. See, I needed a vehicle after I got kicked out of the house, and I got a warranty. Got that for $1,000. This is 81. Only hoodlums drove motorcycles back then. It's a badass motorcycle, one of a kind. Same motorcycles. Richard Gere, an officer and a gentleman. I bet he didn't kickstart it though. It took a trick to start that bike. But anyway, that's a sidetrack. But yeah. But yeah, he's standing up. I thought, I just looked at him and go, well, if you want to punch me, go ahead. You know, he's trying to intimidate me like he was a tough guy again. Or I just kind of laughed. He goes, well, I'm going to call your brother, Danny, my Vietnam vet brother, and that wasn't good. I mean, he was volatile himself. Really didn't want him involved. So I thought, well, I'll call my other brother. I mean, he's a little more rational, I guess. So we were both trying to call at the same time. This time it was before cell phones. I mean, this is, I don't know, before cell phones. But it was like a house phone. It was like a portable phone. So there's 2 lines. But neither of us could call out. So I come in, hey, I can't call, I couldn't call out either. So he goes, I can't call out. Well, he goes, hang it up. So I went, all right, I'll hang it up. So I went and hung it up. I come walking back into the living room. He goes, well, I'm calling the police. I thought, oh, that's perfect. Okay, go ahead, you call the police. So anyway, the police show up. And it wasn't Kaiser Police. Kaiser Police, they loved me. I'll have to tell the stories about this, why they loved me, but they wouldn't arrest me. This was some reason. I think this was county, and a state cop showed up later. But anyway, knocks on the door. I open the door, and he goes, "You go outside, talk to him." It's like a trainee or something. 2 minutes. All the kid says, well, what happened? And I'm telling the story. Like 2 minutes later, the other cop comes out, turn around, put your hands behind your back. So I complied. I mean, no use arguing about something like that. So I complied. I go, well, what am I being charged with? He goes, hindering 911. I go, that's ridiculous. I mean, just the fact that you're here just proves that. Can you ask him how many times he called 911? And how many times he was successful? He goes, no, it's not necessary. I go, yes, it is. He goes, no, it's not. I'm not going to do that. He says you've been drinking. I go, well, can I get a breathalyzer test? He goes, no, that's not necessary. I go, yes, it is necessary. It's very necessary. Now I look at the other cop, the trainee. I go, can you give me a test? He's like looking at me with this grin on his face. So, anyway, puts me in cuffs, puts me in the back of the car, and then a state cop drives up, and him and this cop, they talk for 20 minutes basically, and so every neighbor is sure to watch by now. Hey, there's a couple of cop cars out front, and hey, Sean's in the back of it. So yeah, I spent a night in jail, and I came back home the next day to get clothes and stuff. I go, I got arrested for hindering 911. Dad goes, well, that didn't happen. That stupid cop. I go, yeah, I know. He goes, well, I'm going to call someone down there and talk to him about it. I go, yeah, you better. You should. I said, yeah, you should. What I meant was, you better. But he goes, you hurt my feelings. It's like, oh my God. I go, you said I helped kill Mother. Don't you think that hurt my feelings? He's standing there looking at me like I'm stupid. Like he doesn't understand what I'm saying, and I should know better, because other feelings didn't matter to him, because they weren't his. They really had no bearing on him whatsoever. So anyway, I got clothes anyway. But he did talk to someone, and 3 weeks later, I got a menacing charge to go with the hindering 911. And he wanted me to plead guilty. He wanted me in jail again. I talked to my brother during this time, and he said the same thing. You're stupid if you don't plead guilty. Let's plead guilty. You're stupid if you don't plead guilty. So I quit talking to him too But anyway, yeah, I got stuck living. I couldn't do that job anymore. And the owner of this hazelnut place, this Steve guy that I stuck with going out of high school, his dad owned this hazelnut processing plant and a lot of acreage. And I'd spent 10 seasons there, and he was getting ill. And he'd always been ill. I found out the reason why, because after my father passed away, I got inheritance and I could research stuff. And I found out this Dave, he was in artillery during the Korean War, and he stayed stateside. What he was doing was, one of the other guys I worked with said Dave was talking about shooting nukes as artillery shells. He's laughing about it. It made sense when I saw he was in the artillery. But yeah, he's shooting nukes as artillery. It explained all his lingering illnesses the entire time I knew him. But he was getting really ill this time, and he needed people to work at the plant. So, and I ran that place. I mean, I designed a lot of it. I came from the NORPAC, where they're doing 60 tons of corn an hour. And plus they're doing beans, 50 tons, and broccoli, 35 tons an hour at the same time. So I came from that background. I revolutionized this crappy... I mean, that place is horrifying. It really was. It's like some, post-apocalyptic idea of a workplace or something. It's like built on a human body. They call it the grizzly, where the nuts came in boxes, like 5 foot by 5 foot by 5 foot square, basically. And like 1,200 pounds, which is like a little over half a ton of nuts in a box, and you dump them. Half a ton of nuts fall come into a grizzly, and it has a door that goes up and down, called it the grizzly. It goes through a washer. They'll go through stuff that pulled out the dirt and stuff, and they go through a big spinning drum, 20 feet long and 6 feet in the diameter, with water in it. It goes through another thing, and it goes into a dryer, and it's a whole big weird... Everything is homemade, too. It's all weird and creepy. And the storage area is big as a blimp hanger. And did it have a gas chamber? You bet it did. Right next to the 20-foot deep pit. It was like 40 feet long and 30 feet wide that never saw the light of day. There's that too. But yeah, he said, I'll pay you $25 an hour to work the season. And if you want to go back to that other place, you can. So I told the Wheels they loved me there. I said, hey, I got these 2 charges. I don't know what's going to happen. Plus, I can't live there at home. I have nowhere to wash up or get clean or anything. Or wash clothes or live, or, I mean, I could live in the back of my... But, anyway, it came down to where I could live at where this Steve lived. See, Steve had passed away. He's the guy, he lived out there a lot of years. The last 15 years he's died, and I hung out there all the time. Saw a lot of weird stuff out there. This was like first year I worked there. This is like 96. We're having a bond. See, the only thing that me and Steve really had in common, we were both weird outsiders. He was kind of like negative and I was positive. we like the same kind of music. It's like I grew up in the anti-establishment music of the 60s. And that, I still like the same thing, rock, anti-establishment rock, same thing. But he kind of liked the same type of genre, but a little different. So, but anyway, I had ended up living at this same location, but Steve lived here at this time. This is like 96. It's like 10 years before I lived there. Or 20 years. No, that's not right. Yeah, 10 yeah, that's weird. 10 years before I lived there. But anyway, we were listening. It was summer, and he had the great stereo in his middle of nowhere in a hazelnut orchard. So you just crank it up as loud as you want. We had a burn barrel and burning stuff and drinking beer and smoking weed. So what accounted for fun in those days. It was night. It was like midnight, after midnight. And I looked out across the orchard. It was this orchard. Well, we'll see. I lived right. I guess it would be here. See this shape here? This is the orchard I lived in, right down here. Does it look like anything to you? It's like a skull to me. I didn't notice this till I got Google Maps. See the shape? Right there. But yeah, this is 96. First year I started working there. I was here, and I see somewhere over here, I go, hey Steve, there's a helicopter out here. He goes, yeah, so what? There's always helicopters. I go, no, it's coming right towards your house. He goes, oh yeah, sure, it's the cops. Hide the weed, man, it's the cops, it's the pigs. It's coming, and he's just putting along real slow, just put. I go, no, I'm serious, there's a helicopter coming straight towards your house. And he goes, oh, sure, yeah, right. And then you could start to hear it. I mean, it was real quiet, but I mean, you can't mistake it when it starts getting close. And thump, 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 thump. And he looks outside, and he goes, oh, you weren't kidding. I go, no, I'm not. He starts to turn out all the lights. He goes, oh, God, it's the pigs, man. And it starts getting closer and closer. And I notice when it gets close, there's like a red dot. Like a red sphere in front of it. I go, wow, that's weird. But this is about the size of a grapefruit. I'm just looking at that. I'm watching it go by, and then the helicopter, I mean, the red sphere was really low. I mean, there's power lines right along the road, and this house is right near the road. And I thought, wow, it's going to get close to those power lines. And it went just about, like, I don't know, 15, 20 feet over the power lines. But helicopters following right behind it. And it was a little higher, but it wasn't much higher over those power lines. But yeah, it's just like this thump, 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 thump. And Steve was flipping out. So, wow, that's weird. And they just went off into the distance over the hill. And I go, wow, there's like a red dot and red ball in front of it. He's going, is it UFO? I said, I don't know what it was. I still don't. But I know what I know now about spheres. I mean, size is, they can change size. It's pretty much relative to them. If you can go through interstellar time and stuff, sizes doesn't really matter. So anyway, that's weird. But yeah, I ended up living right where he lived. And he actually died there. It's about the 5th or 6th year I worked there. I didn't work full seasons. I just worked during the process. I ran the plant, basically. And I'm a wizard on a forklift. And they need someone to load and unload trucks, because it's 2,000 of these totes full of nuts. I mean, there's big squares full of nuts. And we get 2,000 of those, and they're 60 different lots, and you gotta weigh everything, because that's how the growers get paid. And so you need someone to be able to drive a forklift and keep track of stuff and be orderly. So I could do that in my sleep. So I just worked the season. I ran the plant and run shipping, receiving, loading, unloading the trucks, and make sure everything ran. But yeah. But yes, the 5th, I got a call one day. It says Steve passed away in his sleep. And yeah, he was living in a trailer. I lived in the same place he did, same place where he eventually died. I lived at the same exact place. I mean, it was a different trailer, but same place. And yeah, I remember we burned his trailer back out. This was the Bayou farm. Each different acreage had a name. This was the Bayou because it used to be a swamp. There's a lake that runs around the crane, the outer skull. But it looks like a skull to me. I don't know what you think. You see the mouth? Ugh. But the name of that road was interesting. Oh yeah, when Steve passed away, we burned his trailer. Is his gun nut brother and a couple of his friends. Ron God. People called him the Ron God. His New York friend, Angelo. But when we burned his trailer, it's like the middle of it caved in first. And this Angelo is remodeling he had some apartments that he got. And had all this wood, so he stuffed all the wood. But anyway, it burned really hot, and the middle of it caved in. And when it was burning, I remember the smoke was coming up in a helix. I remember it looked like DNA strands. I was going, look, that looks like DNA strands, and we're all kind of looking at it, and these colors were shooting up it, like all these purple, red, blue, green, yellow, orange. It's going, wow, look at that. I'm going, you guys seen that? That looks like DNA. And they're going, well, maybe it's the metal from all the metal burning that's making the colors. It's like, there was nothing metal there. And the kitchen was one end, and all the other stuff was at the other end. There's nothing metal there. But it's really weird. But yeah. There's another thing with an electrical cloud. That was pretty weird. I probably shouldn't talk. But yeah, there's lightning hit so close one time. Heard it before I saw it. And you know, when lightning is that close, it cracks. I mean, it literally sounds like a crack. It sounds like 1,000 sheets of glass going snapping at the same time. Like, I heard that sound, and I looked, and it was so bright that you couldn't. I thought, what's that sound? And it was like being x-rayed. I mean, closing your eyes didn't help. You just had to turn away. But I was sitting in the car at the time, and Steve was sitting next to me. And I looked at him, and he had his head against the glass, and I thought, ooh, if his head is touching that metal frame, I hope he didn't get electric shock. And then I thought, ooh, I hope I'm not touching metal, because then I thought, oh, you'd already be dead, you wouldn't even know it by now. It's like, oh, that's right, quick thinking. Thought all this in a half a second. But he moved. But he said probably the funniest thing he'd ever said is a line from the movie, Cheech and Chong movie. He was a stoner hippie from way back. Cheech and Chong was he was like these hippie comedians. And they had a movie called Up in Smoke. And one of the lines was, a guy was playing a music really loud. You know, so loud, a guy walked by and he thought, well, I hope I can still have babies. He thought he'd lost all his sperm. But yeah, there's that crack and then flash, and I looked at him, and Steve goes, covered his groin, he goes, I hope I can still have babies. He had to be there, I guess. But yeah, lightning almost hit at that same place. But the owner said, well, I'll pay you $25 and give you a place to live. So I said, well, great. I guess I take it. You know, what choice do I have? So, and it was hell. It really was. I mean, there were years like that after Steve died. Everyone there, and Steve worked there included, everyone was on meth. A couple of years after that, there's 5 guys working there. Or, let's see, there's John, Rich. No, I shouldn't say their names. They're all 4 or 5 main guys. They're all on meth, at least, and alcohol. And this Renee kid, I ran that place from upstairs. This is a 3-story building. And the storage area got 6 silos, and it's the size of a blimp hanger. It's massive. And the plant itself, it's a big dryer. Essentially a big dryer. It dries nuts. Hazelnuts. Run 50 ton a day. And there's 6 big, huge natural gas burners in back and the hot air is pushed by these big, about the size of airplane propellers, big fans, size of airplane propellers. So, and it's pumping out carbon monoxide gas. I breathed all that gas upstairs for 11 years. But I ran the plant from upstairs, and there's this Renee kid, meth addict. Second year working up there, I asked him to do one thing, when we changed lots, because it's important to know how much growers are growing, how much weight there are, because that's how they get paid. So I just asked him one thing: could you, when they're changing lots, just stick your head out, and I'll tell you the weight, and so I know they changed. I asked him to do that, and he thought I was getting mad at him or something. The computer. He thought I was being an asshole, trying to tell him what to do or something. But, he just wouldn't. I told one of the other guys, I keep asking this guy to do this one thing. I mean, that's all I'm asking him to do. I did everything else for him. When I did that job, I ran the plant from there. I did everything myself. I asked him to do this one thing, and he thinks I'm trying to boss him around or something. So I told him this, John, I asked this kid to do this one thing. He's like getting pissy. He goes, well, let's go up and talk to him about it. So we went upstairs and I go, hey, he gets in my face, oh, I'm going to kick your fucking ass. You don't have to tell me what to do. Do you think you can do this job? I did this job better than anyone else. He's like, what the F was this? I mean, he's just flipping out, and it's the meth and that place, I found out. Because everyone was on meth. This place was nuts. I started keeping a journal because I figured someone was going to get killed eventually. If it was me, I wanted documentation about it. But finally, he got right in my face, right inch away. And I just go, get the F out of my face right now. And John stepped between us. I just go, listen, did this job for 11 years. Don't tell me what I asked you to do one thing, you can't even handle that. So it's like everyone in that place was nuts. But it was years like that. And eventually everyone burned out. That kid, he eventually quit showing up to work. He'd hang out there and clock in once in a while, clock out. He'd clock in and never clock out. One day he bought a car that he couldn't afford, drives in, clocks in, leaves, comes in later in the day, hasn't been to work all day, clocks out and then leaves. It's like, he just clocked in, clocked out. Didn't work at all. But he'd clock in, never clock out, so they going, what's going on? It's like he was living there for a while. You didn't see him for a week. Oh, and right before he quit showing up, he started showing up with a gun. It's like he stole a gun from somewhere. It's like, holy crap. I'm not into guns and stuff like that. But I seriously thought, well, man, if there's going to be if everyone's going to start carrying guns, well, maybe I should start carrying one too. But he ended up having to sell that for meth anyway, so he didn't have it for long. But one day, after he hadn't been around for a week, he shows up in a riding lawnmower. And he parks it in one of the sheds out back. Yeah, that's weird. And I told the owner, hey, he's Dan, this kid, he just drove a lawnmower back there. He goes, yeah. It's the owner, he's an alcoholic. He didn't seem to care about anything either. And, but it turns out he stole it from one of the neighbors. He just drove it there and he was trying to sell it. People were coming there trying to sell it. The owner came back with a truckload of nuts one day. I go, look at this. And this kid, there's these people looking at this riding lawnmower. I go, well, what's going on here? And he's looking at that. I mean, he's trying to sell that lawnmower, The owner's kind of looking, I guess he is. But he started calling up his neighbors, asking if any of them missing the lawnmower, and it turns out one of them was. But that's the way this place was. It's like people came there. Everyone that worked there was a disaster, it seemed like. And I wasn't much better. I developed rheumatoid arthritis. And I couldn't work. After 2006, I started there full time. About 2010, I developed rheumatoid arthritis really bad, and I was alcoholic. The time right? Yeah, that's about right. And so I could barely work. I lived at this. The last 6 years I lived there, like 2010, 2016, I couldn't work. I could only work like 4 months out of the year. And that whole time I lived there, I averaged like $9,000 a year. It's just below poverty. But I had a place to live, so I couldn't get any benefits. I didn't have running water because I had to completely replace the entire floor. The owner bought this for $1,000. It has big, huge holes in the floor. But anyway, I'll get to the good parts a little later. It gets even worse. I can pretty much guarantee that. The battery's dying on this, so to be continued. that'll be part 3A, I guess. Part 3B. Yeah, anyway, back in a while.